Throughout American history, few issues have been as divisive or as widely disputed as the existence and definition of basic human rights. At the heart of this issue was a century-long battle for the abolition of slavery. In 1808, a federal law was enacted to ban the international slave trade. This prohibited the purchase of slaves from overseas, largely Africa, from being abducted and sold in America. However, with generations of slaves already reproducing domestically, this did little to curb the use of slaves. There remain some areas, however, that refused to legalize slavery or abolished it much sooner. Among them were Nova Scotia, Vermont, California, and New York. In these places, slaves were able to find a safe haven should they be able to escape their owners. However, another act soon came along that forced these states to return slaves that sought refuge there, and oftentimes the average man was incentivized to report runaway slaves with the promise of financial rewards. Through a combination of fear and greed, a number of bounty hunters soon set up shop, and more specifically, slave hunters did too. And as greed begets more greed, those reporting missing slaves began inflating their numbers, and knowing hunters began rounding up lawful black citizens from free states. Soon this type of thing became the norm, and even in the rare instance that a captured man was allowed a trial, judges were paid twice as much for each guilty verdict they rendered as they were for an innocent verdict. From every angle, people were being incentivized against abolition. Many homes, especially older ones, tend to be mired in history. Sometimes this is family history, and sometimes it is history that extends back to a time before the family ever moved to the area. Regardless of the type of history a home has, people often uncover it unknowingly, and this often takes place during renovations. In a town about 25 miles south of the Canadian border, a man named John bared witness to the uncovering of such history when his father decided to renovate the family home. It had long been rumored that the family's home may be of historic significance, and many people had postured that the home had secret hiding places in it. But John's father had searched repeatedly, and it seemed as if all the talk may have just been gossip and a fascinating urban legend. But when his father decided to make alterations to the house that would make it more energy efficient, they discovered the amazing secrets that John's childhood home was hiding. In just a moment, we'll tell you what they uncovered in the home, but first make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon right now. After you click the bell, comment and notification squad below, and I'll reply to all of you saying thanks. Now, John, like many children, had been scared of the basement in his childhood home, so it was fine by him that there was very little remarkable about it. But when his father decided to knock down a wall behind their water heater, they realized that the basement had been harboring an amazing secret. As the battle for abolition was raging through the 1800s, there remained some northern states and locations in modern-day Canada that represented safe havens for slaves seeking refuge. But the fact remained that it was very difficult for slaves to escape their masters, much less to complete the long and terrifying journey to a refuge without being caught. This need for safe transport gave birth to several networks of abolitionists willing to aid with transporting and concealing escaped slaves, most notably the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was a network of people who assisted slaves to reach northern safe havens, mainly in modern-day Ontario. The Underground Railroad got its name from its secretive nature and use of railway terminology in its operations. Stops on the railway were houses located every 10 to 20 miles. Escaped slaves would cover the distance between stops overnight and rest during the day. Because of the incentive to slave hunters, abolitionists couldn't simply have refugees in their homes. This meant that they often had to build complex and very well-concealed hiding spots in their homes. When John's father decided it was time to remodel the basement of his childhood home, he started with a wall behind their water softener. Water softeners were first mass-produced in 1924. This meant that the spot where their water softener was certainly exposed during the days of the Underground Railroad in the early to mid-19th century. As he began to take apart the wall, he quickly noticed that a particular section of foundation stones were unlike the others. Behind the wall was an area large enough to conceal several people and even a bayonet in case those hidden there were discovered by a slave hunter or suspicious neighbor. During its time, the Underground Railroad helped thousands escape the bondage and cruelty of slavery, and John and his family can take pride in knowing that their home may well have been one of the last stops for slaves heading toward the safety of British North America or present-day Canada just 25 miles north. That's our video for today, folks, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click on one of the two videos above and have a good day.